All right. Welcome, Tom. You are well known in this community and highly revered in this community. Those of you who don't
I'm
know
just an
about
old guy
Tom,
who's been at it for a while.
um, Steve's with us for a while. Julie Langenbeer has been around with us for a long time. Kate, of course, you know. Margie Fields, I'm sure you know. And most of these that look like the team, the watershed team for you in many ways. They, if you don't know about the beginning of the Northwest Stream Center, what I'd like to share with you is that it was once a parking lot for the county. I think their county service vehicles were there. And this man over here, Tom Murdoch, once dug down and realized that he was sitting on wetlands that the North Creek had at one time held place for salmon and trout and whatnot. And he began a campaign that has resulted in a wonderful environmental, I want to call it an institution at this point, because it's been around that long by now, but it has grown considerably. And I think Tom might talk a little bit more about how he plans to grow it even more. So Tom, welcome. You are, as I said, one of our treasures, our local treasures, environmental treasures here in Snohomish County.
I don't know what to say to that. I'm just I'm a bit tarnished in my old age here. But I actually, when I was kind of thinking we were going to focus on the state of the streams, but just quickly on Adopt Stream Foundation, for those who aren't aware, we started in 1985. Our mission is to teach people how to be stewards of their watersheds. And we're finding that when I ask that question of what is a watershed, of most of the people I interact with who are first timers here at the Northwest Stream Center, 9 out of 10 people that come here don't know that a watershed is that big area of land around a stream that drains to it. So it makes it really challenging for us to carry out our mission to teach people how to be stewards of their watersheds when 9 out of 10 people don't have a clue what a watershed is. So we make sure that when they leave here, they know that it's that big area of land around a stream that drains to it. The other little bit of information that we've gathered over the years is less than 1% of our visitors have any knowledge at all of what a riparian zone is. And we try to make sure when they leave that they have a really complete understanding that riparian zones, that area of vegetation next to a stream that determines the stream's ecological health. Bigger and wider it is, the more healthy the stream's going to be for all kinds of reasons. Like a big wide riparian zone is going to intercept nutrients and pollutants from the surrounding watershed, and the trees and shrubs and the understory vegetation going to provide shade, which cools the air, which cools the water. Cold water holds oxygen really well. And if all of us here were a school of trout, we'd want to be in a stream that has a lot of oxygen. And we're finding, though, unfortunately, in most of our watersheds, that the riparian zones have gotten to so small that the stream systems aren't really suitable for self-sustaining salmon runs. And what is the magic number that everybody's looking for? According to research by a number of the leading scientists, including one of my mentors, James Carr from the University of Washington, they conclude that need at least a 300-foot wide riparian zone from where the stream begins at the headwaters to where it ends down at the mouth on both sides of the stream. That's, football field wide area of, or long area of undisturbed native vegetation. And then prior to 1980, there were no regulations at all governing streams in Snohomish County. And back then I had the dubious honor of writing the first drainage regulations in Snohomish County, which was adopted in Christmas week, because the county commissioners at the time, I think, didn't want to deal with a lot of public flack, mainly from the development crowd. And so we anyhow, we got the first regulation in 1980. So things have begun to improve from a regulatory and policy perspective to a certain degree, but there's been a lot of developments occurred prior to that time, and now we're into trying to figure out how to fix some of the stuff we've broken. And on the Northwest Stream Center, Joan's right. We did have when we leased this property, which is located south. I think most of you have probably been here before, but if you haven't, come by, and you'll see 3 acres of wetlands that we restored from a 4-acre parking lot. And we started that process in 1992. And if you didn't know what I'm telling you, and you came here, you'd think Mother Nature did all that work. We hope she's pleased with the end results.
Yes.
We also have a visitors building where we do most of our Streamkeeper Academy classes on all different aspects of the critters that we share the Northwest ecology with. And although we do other things there, so on Saturday, that's like tomorrow, we've got a wonderful event taking place. It's Northwest Stream Center Sustainable Infrastructure Campaign benefit concert that's being put on by the Musical Mountaineers. And if you've never heard of the Musical Mountaineers, they're 2 young ladies who are mountain climbers, and Rose is a wonderful piano player, and Anastasia is a terrific violinist, and they climb mountains and play concerts for an audience of a camera, maybe a marmot or a bear, but they intentionally play these concerts with no people up in the around them, and rarely do they play for public audiences, although their skills with their musical instruments are so good that they have been invited by the Seattle Symphony to play at Benaroya Hall a couple of times. We have 16 seats left. If you haven't have some interest to come to that event, and we're, as part of a fundraising effort to change our visitors building into a model of sustainability as one of our measures to help fight climate change. And our asphalt roof up here draws a lot of heat, and it's, of course, 3-tab shingle asphalt based roof. We're going to change that out with white metal heat reflecting roof, add 160 solar panels, link into battery system, put up rain collection systems of rain barrels, small cisterns, large cisterns, and all kinds of other stuff. So when people come here in the future, they'll be able to look at the things that have been done here and leave thinking, I can't do all that stuff, but I can probably do that and maybe that, and get involved in helping fight climate change at my home or my business. But I have a question for you guys. And I'll start with top left on my screen, I guess. I want to know what watersheds are close to you, and then I'll tell you what condition it's in.
Do you want to be where I put share screen up here, Tom, so that you can, I haven't done that yet, but I will. I'm behind the times here.
Okay, yeah, so I saw it for a second, then it went away.
So there you go. You can share screen if you'd like to at this point.
Okay. All right, Joan, what's the closest watershed to you?
Mine is Picnic Point.
Picnic Point Creek. Okay, know it well.
And also Norma Creek. Does that?
What's that?
Norma Creek. That's the one that they just
too.
did. They just redid the. I was describing the culvert that they redid on 60th Avenue West. You know, they had the road closed and they completely redid the access for the salmon
Okay.
at that point.
And Wendy, what stream is closest to you? Can't hear you. Unmute.
Shell Creek.
Shell Creek. Edmonds. Know it well. Walked it.
Yeah, there's a second one too. I can't remember because the high school students are working on it.
Steve, what's your closest creek?
Mine's is North Creek. I'm about a 20-minute walk from your store, over by Mariner Park and Ride, and I walk in McCollum Park a lot. So I'm familiar with your area. As a matter of fact, I've been really excited about all the traffic that had to be slowed down as we crossed the culvert replacement and the bridge that they've made there. It's just really beautiful.
Yeah. And Steve, next time you walk by, come to the nature store where you can do all your Christmas shopping.
Yeah, actually, that's on my list. Thanks, Tom.
And for all of you, you can spread the word on this. On December 2nd, we're having our annual Holiday Trees for Salmon event. We're selling live Christmas trees in pots. And if you've got a place to plant a tree, great. You can do wonderful things for the world for hundreds of years. If not, after the holidays, bring your live tree back to us and we'll plant your tree for you next to a salmon stream. So
Tom, later on, I suggest that we
cool
come
way to
on
enjoy the holiday.
I want to find out if we can come on the 1st of December. The 2nd of December, we have an action workshop with our league, which is a big league
we have
event.
250 trees that are coming. I believe they're scheduled to be here on November 28th.
So I'm encouraging the
early.
team to come on the 1st of December, if that's okay on Friday.
Well, sure, 1st, but 28, 29, the 1st will be fine. And then you get your pick. You'll miss though the holiday Makers Bazaar on the 2nd.
Oh,
The local artisans are coming to sell all the stuff that you must have. But we're going to be selling holiday trees through December 22nd.
how late will that go, Tom? Then
It's 10 a.m. till 4 p.m.
Okay, well maybe we can squeak
Tuesdays
in
through Saturdays.
Just save us a few things.
Sunday we're not here, but Tuesdays through Saturdays. So Jim, what's your local creek?
Woods Creek in and around Monroe.
All right, know that one really well.
And there's another one on the Towelco Loop area road. I can't think of it. It's another little creek, has a little bridge going over it.
I'll stick with Woods. And by the way, coho salmon are spawning on the Sorghum Free Creek tributary right now.
Well,
yeah. One of our board members, Andy Locke, lives next to the creek, and I met with him last night, and I think he said he got 20 coho on the Sorghum Creek tributary right now.
how do you spell that?
Sorgenfrie, Sorghum Free Creek. It's upstream, one of the upstream tributaries. Marjorie,
German, huh?
is that the stream I see behind you?
That's actually the Edmonds Marsh, which is part of a watershed, a major watershed.
Right.
And then I also am near to Shell Creek, and I'm not real near, but I'm really worried about Perrinville Creek watershed.
Right. I'll cover Shell with Wendy, and then I'll go over Perrinville with you. And Julie, long time no see.
All right.
What creek is near you?
I live in North Everett. I suspect there have been creeks in the past that were paved over many, many years
They're
ago.
all in pipes now.
And I suspect 15th Avenue may have been a creek because it floods badly. It's a low point. So I don't know if the Snohomish River would be considered, or Pigeon Creek to the south. And those are the closest streams. And of course, we probably drain directly into the Sound, the Everett waterfront.
So I would say in the North Everett area, you're part of the Snohomish Basin and the estuary area of the Snohomish River. Kate, what's close?
I live next to Crystal Creek that leads into Swamp Creek.
Okay, Swamp. And Valerie.
Swamp Creek watershed scriber area too, and then Lions on my other side. I'm kind of on a ridge.
Swamp Creek and Lion.
So actually, I think it's Lion without an S.
Lion the closest to you?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll focus on Lion because I'll cover Swamp with Kate, and that'll cover things. Sally, hi.
Hi, Tom. Well, we've got little Goldie Creek here in the neighborhood, and then, of course,
Goldie Creek?
yeah, and then
Okay,
Scriber that flows in.
Scriber Creek.
That flows into Scriber Creek, yeah.
Okay, know it well. And Lyndon. Lyndon, unmute.
Hi, yeah, I'm unmuted. I'll have to concur with Julie. I live in the North Everett area, and Pigeon Creek is the closest one. And that creek runs from above the hospital down toward the waterfront, and it runs through what I would call a mini riparian area with has been replaced with a lot of native plants on both sides of that creek, and runs through and down to, like I said, to the beach area there. So.
Is it Pigeon Creek 1 or Pigeon Creek 2?
I didn't know there was 2.
There are. Pigeon Creek 1 is the northern one, and it goes through the city park.
City Park. Oh, okay. Well, this would be whatever that goes west.
I'll give you a brief on both of them.
Thanks.
And
then we got Kathy.
Hi, Halls Creek is close to me.
What's that?
Halls, Hall, Halls Creek.
Falls Creek, that one. Where's that one?
From Halls Lake to Lake Ballinger.
Okay, Lake Ballinger.
It flows into, Lake Ballinger.
And it flows into the lake from north, south, east, west.
It goes from north from Halls Lake.
Okay,
south.
Halls Creek.
Yes, Halls Creek.
I thought you said Falls. Okay, I know Halls Creek quite well.
Good.
Okay. Anybody else I missed? Looks like everybody. Okay, I'm going to do this fairly quickly because I don't want to take up your entire morning. I could probably do that with any one of these individual creeks, but I'll just give you a real quick overview. And Picnic Point Creek. That creek, the best salmon spawning and rearing habitat in Picnic Point Creek is upstream of Picnic Point Road, right upstream of the sewage treatment plant. Okay, that's where the best spawning and rearing habitat is. As the water, and the good news about that is that Snohomish County Parks owns that property. The creek flows from there underneath the pipe, underneath Picnic Point Road, and the outfall of that creek is a total barrier to fish migration. Then it flows down through a pretty altered stream channel, which fortunately has a number of log structures in it, put in by Snohomish County Surface Water Management, underneath another pipe into Picnic Point Creek Park, downstream underneath the railroad tracks into Puget Sound. That creek still has a salmon run, and our resident and a sea run cutthroat trout that share that creek. Sometimes you can see fly fisher people out there and waders and little inner tubes around them casting for cutthroat trout off the creek. In the past, I have actually gone down there with folks in Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we have caught salmon returning into the Picnic Point Park and then put them into a with water inside of a big plastic garbage can, a clean garbage can. And then we trucked them upstream and released them into the spawning habitat up above. Not a sustainable model for a fish run, but one thing to do is try to put pressure on the county, who knows that they have this barrier under the road. The county owns, it's a county road, the county owns that barrier. I know it's on their list of things to do. That's one of the things that could be done to improve the quality of that stream. And of course, in all these streams, we need to figure out ways to accommodate humans and protect what's left of the salmon habitat, something we've not been really good about doing. Shell Creek. If you guys get a chance, you can go to the Adopt Stream Foundation website, go to the services section of the website, and down scroll, there'll be a number of links that'll open up at the bottom. There's one that says PSC Stream Keepers. That stands for Puget Sound Coastal Stream Keepers. And as you just scroll down, once you open that link, you'll come to Shell Creek. And a number of other streams. There's 23 streams, I believe, between Edmonds and Everett. And we've surveyed those streams, and the information we found is located on that PSC Streamkeepers site. But Shell Creek, we found coho salmon, cutthroat trout. In the lower end of the creek, there's a couple of landowners that own fairly large parcels, and to their credit, they've left the stream in reasonably good shape. They've got landscapes nearby, but there's a pretty reasonable riparian vegetation there. But as the creek goes upstream and gets into more densely populated areas, each individual landowner seems to do what the heck they want to do with their part of the creek. And the city of Edmonds, now, well, hopefully things will change. You got a new mayor in Edmonds, who I haven't talked to yet, but hopefully the city will start taking a look at its environmental policies and rules and actually enforce them, which it has not been doing for quite a while. The outgoing mayor didn't do very much of anything, although I know he publicly said a few things, but the on-the-ground stuff didn't result. And the outgoing former public works director was just terrible to work with down there. But I'll get into that a little more when we get into the Picnic Point Creek thing. Shell Creek, though, it still has a salmon run. If we can get the people who live, work, and recreate around the surrounding watershed to take actions to protect and enhance it, we can make that salmon run better. North Creek. Headwaters of North Creek, where the open water starts, is in a pond on a Fred Meyer property north of Evergreen Way. And then water from that pond, which collects all the runoff from the surrounding commercial development, goes in a pipe underneath Evergreen Way, continues in a pipe underneath a public storage facility down to a little over 5-acre natural area owned by the city of Everett that's surrounded by dense housing development on both sides. And then it continues down through a variety of commercial and residential development, with the riparian zone shrinking considerably from that 5-acre natural area that Everett owns upstream. Down underneath Interstate 5, well, before it gets there, it flows down through the site of the old Snohomish County Park or Fairgrounds, which is Lago de Plata Villa. That's a 244 home mobile home community, and all those mobile homes they drain down into North Creek. At Lago, though, it's been kind of a cool thing. We actually, much of that creek was in a pipe through a green space next to the mobile homes. And several years ago, we convinced the owners to allow us to daylight the creek there. And so now there's an open channel there, and we're working with landowners to do more work there. Downstream, the creek goes underneath 116th Street and then flows onto one property where the owners a long time ago put concrete walls on both sides of the open channel, essentially eliminating the surrounding floodplain. We're working with them to see if we can take care of that. And then it goes down, flows downhill from Mariner High School, underneath Interstate 5 through about 20 residential properties to a 6.8 acre owned property owned by the city of Everett natural area. And then next to the Columbia Center Athletic Club on the west side of the creek and the Columbia Center Golf Driving Range on the east side of the creek. Their respective parking lots are within 25 feet of the top of the stream bank. Then it goes underneath that a bridge, a 23-foot wide bridge span that DOT finally put in after we notified them 18 years ago that it was a barrier to fish migration. I have to thank the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission and their lawsuit against DOT, which they won after going to the Supreme Court to get DOT to remove barriers to fish migration. They're kind of getting at it slowly, but they're doing it. And then that creek goes down past into McCullum Park, past the Northwest Stream Center, where I'm speaking to you from, downstream through Mill Creek Town Center, underneath the Bothell Highway, through the Canyon Park Business Center, underneath 405, through the North Creek Business Park, downstream past the University of Washington Bothell campus, where last Sunday I saw coho salmon spawning, into the Sammamish River. Roughly 30 square mile watershed shared by City of Everett and the headwaters, Snohomish County, Mill Creek, and Bothell. And there is absolutely zero coordination on stormwater management between those different jurisdictions. Something that now that we have a lame duck executive director or a county executive, Dave Summers, who can't run again, maybe we can convince them to take the lead in getting these jurisdictions to actually coordinate their surface water management plans and, hey, comprehensive land use plans as well. So North Creek upper, I'd say the upper 2.5 miles of the main stem of the creek and the surrounding watershed, which includes Silver Lake Creek, Penny Creek, Ruggs Lake, about 55 to 60% of that upper part of the watershed is rooftops, parking lots, and driveways. So every time it rains, it's like somebody turns the faucet on, and when it stops raining, the faucet turns off. So we have a flashy condition in the upper 2.5 miles. The Adopt Stream Foundation recently got a grant, which will make public after the turn of the year. And we're going to be installing channel spanning log jams and beaver dam analogs, man-made beaver dams, at 3 locations in the headwaters of the creek. And then we're going to be reaching out to the 640 some landowners that live next to the creek to provide recommendations to them on how they can take actions to protect their part of the creek. And then hopefully we'll be able to use the media to get others in the surrounding part of the watershed to do things like converting lawns to native plant landscapes, connecting rain barrels to downspouts, to rain gardens, and all that kind of stuff. Woods Creek out by Monroe. I'm very pleased to tell you that one of the barriers of salmon migration near the mouth of the creek is now gone. And that was a creosote log railroad trestle owned a little confusing about the ownership. It was owned by Burlington Northern and Snohomish County Parks, with Monroe sort of an interested party because they own property on both sides, the city did. And nobody wanted to fix the problem down there. So this creosote log railroad trestle was put in 1939 and it's been deteriorating since. And the legs, the downstream legs of that trestle would collect any material that would float downstream. And every couple of years, there would be so much collected there that fish couldn't get over the collected debris. Plus, as you probably are very well aware, creosote's pretty nasty, toxic stuff. And so this little railroad trestle has been a source of water pollution since 1939. This summer, in the course of September 4th to September 15th, the Adopt Stream Foundation removed that trestle, and we installed 7 log fish habitat structures comprised of over 200 logs. So in less than a 2-week period, we got rid of that thing. It was actually a 10-year process to get to this fast and furious work, but it's done. And then we have later in the fall and early winter, we're going to be restoring native vegetation to where that on both sides of the stream bank where the trestle used to be. And then much of the Woods Creek watershed is rural in nature. So one of the very cool things that we found when we were doing kind of some baseline biological inventories before we took the trestle out is the lower part of that creek is loaded with caddisfly, mayfly, and stonefly, which are only found in places where water quality is in pretty good shape. And we found really large mussel beds there as well. These are Western pearl shell mussels. They'll live on average 60, sometimes 70 years, but not unusual to make it over 100 years. And they filter 9 to 13 gallons of water during their lifespan. So they pull in water through one siphon, extract particles from the water as their source of food, and then they exhale particle-free water out. So we got a natural water pollution filtration system there. But where the trestle was, we didn't find any aquatic life. We didn't find any, it's just like a desert, because all the creosote that was leaching out from the vertical piles. So pretty easy baseline there. Now we get to go back over the next couple of years, thanks to funding from a NOAA grant, and we're going to be taking a look at the changes to that location. We also are working with several landowners upstream north of Highway 2 to design the installation of log fish habitat structures where the creek flows their property. And we recently got an award of a grant to put together a feasibility study, kind of remodel parts of Alborland Park, which is right next to where that railroad trestle used to be, to put in some inlets into that property, which comprised a lot of fill material. We want to kind of restore some of the rearing habitat for different species of salmon there. So we're going to create a feasibility study for that. And if everybody likes it, then we'll hunt for money to make that work. Perrinville Creek. Oh, Perrinville Creek. Headwaters are in Linwood. Most of the creek north of the Perrinville post office are in, the creek is for the most part in pipes or roadside ditches. There's a few open areas upstream of the Perrinville post office, but in Linwood, most of it is pretty sad shape. On the good news side of things, we, thanks to a court settlement agreement between Waste Action and the city of Linwood, and I don't know what Linwood did to deserve this, but I think it was something happened at their sewer treatment plant. there was a water pollution problem. They got caught, and instead of going to court, they settled out of court, as I understand it, to fix the problem. Plus, there was a cash settlement agreement. And Waste Action called us and asked what we could do with $65,000, and we said, okay, well, we can install 9 rain gardens in the headwaters of Perrineville Creek and convert one landscape into a native plant landscape as part of a Perrineville Creek salmon and trout relief fund, which we'll also be announcing publicly in the next few weeks. And then we're trying to do a little, I guess the proper term is leveraging. The improper term is shaming. We want to get the city of Edmonds to do its part to remove some barriers to migration that are downstream, that are some of the worst man-made barriers to fish migration that were intentionally installed that I've ever seen. So one of those is kind of a common thing under Talbot Road, downstream from the Perrineville post office. The creek flows through residential properties, and it comes to Talbot Road. There, the creek goes through a pipe that has trash racks on the upstream side, and the pipe is over 90 feet long, and there's a 3 to 4 foot outfall drop, meaning pipe is here, you got a 3-foot drop down below. So that pipe itself is a total barrier to salmon migration. And if that wasn't insult enough to salmon, the pipe itself has a 6% slope. And that's a barrier to salmon migration as well. But downstream of that, the worst things that I've seen at the behest of a couple of downstream landowners who were fairly influential at the time with the city, and they didn't like the idea of all that sediment coming downstream from above onto their property, where they had taken upon themselves with no permits from the state or the city and rerouted the creek into an L shape. And then Puget Sound is up here. And on this property here, there's a deck right next to that part of the creek. They didn't want any sediment coming through. So they got and ordered the landowner down below who routed the creek this way to Puget Sound. They got the city to install 2 concrete boxes on either side of the stream channel with storm drains in the bottom, which flow into an underground pipe that goes to Puget Sound. And then adding further insult to the salmon run, there's a horseshoe-shaped flow constrictor installed on a fence right where the creek comes to this property here, and restricting the flow. So during rainstorm events, the water is essentially forced to go in the concrete boxes, which fill up with gravel. And the city, for quite some time, has been at taxpayers' expense, sending this road maintenance people out to clean out the gravel in the creek, so it wouldn't cause flooding to the downstream landowners. Well, things are kind of coming to a head now because the lack of water flowing down through Perrineville Creek, and the decreased velocity, the sediment that has gone down has plugged up the pipe underneath the railroad tracks. So there's going to need to be some immediate action taking place. I predict we have a couple of 100-year rainstorm events in a row in the next few weeks, that there's going to be a major flooding down there. Now, 2 years ago, the then mayor of Edmonds said, "Oh, we need to take action here." No action took place. However, the city did authorize an expenditure of a little bit over $900,000 for a consultant to come up with designs to fix the problem. two downstream landowners don't like the idea of any alterations taking down there unless the city can guarantee that their property won't be harmed. And so the city has put a stall on the consultant coming up with design work. So that was a couple of years ago. And the coho salmon run that were still spawning just below Talbot Road, nowhere to be seen right now. So as the city waits to get its act together, and you put the lifespan of coho together, it's typically a 4-year lifespan, sometimes 3, but we're going back to the beginning, like December of 2019, and then January, February of 2020, and then 21, 22, we're now at 23. If something isn't done very soon, that salmon run will have disappeared. It can be, we can kind of bring back a salmon run like we did with Pigeon Creek 1, which I'll get to later, but Perryville Creek is in big trouble. And it's the city of Edmonds is the main, they're the ones that have to take action to fix the problem. Okay. Let's see, North Everett. So we got a couple of North Everett folks. So most of the stream systems in North Everett are now in pipes, but your stormwater ultimately will wind up down in the Snohomish Basin. And good news in the overall in the Snohomish Basin is there's a lot of things that have been going on. I think you're probably all familiar with the Tulalip Tribes project called Quileute. And if you're not, they bought a old farm from a guy named Pete Portinga, who farmed the areas to the east of the Marysville Sewer Treatment Plant. And of course, along most of the Snohomish River, the farming community was working with the Corps of Engineers to put in dikes along much of the lower Snohomish River. And the Tulalip Tribes, when opportunity presents, they pick up some of these properties with the intent of actually restoring them back in the natural condition. At the Quileute site, they actually got rid of the tide gates that really limited the possibilities of salmon getting up into Allen Creek. So that's now open, and they've restored that area upstream of the surrounding dikes. And more salmon are now coming up in Allen Creek, and then the Upstream Foundation, others are doing restoration work in different places on Allen Creek. And then there's a number of other restoration activities taking place with Snohomish Basin by a whole bunch of different parties. So hopefully we'll get things back into a little better ecological order in the Snohomish Basin. Swamp Creek. Headwaters are in the water troughs at the Walter Hall Golf Course. And 1978, I saw coho salmon spawning just downstream from the Walter Hall Golf Course in what's now Walter Hall Park. No more, but that creek then flows down past the eastern half of Painfield Airport, which drains into Swamp Creek, through some development that from a salmon's perspective was very poorly planned, to Lake Stickney, down past the old Linwood High School site, past the Alderwood Mall, underneath I-5-405, which used to be called the Swamp Creek Interchange, down into Kenmore and past Kenmore's Squires Landing Park, which has been renamed with a Native American name. I don't know what that is right now, into the Sammamish River, Lake Washington, Ship Canal, Ballard Locks. It's salmon return through there. Swamp Creek and North Creek, historically, king salmon, silver salmon, sockeye salmon, steelhead, resident, seaman, cutthroat trout, sculpin dace, and brook lamprey. Those species are still there, just numbers are decreasing. And Swamp Creek is much like North Creek, lots of development, lots of stormwater runoff. Riparian zone is shrinking. Goldie Creek, I'll kick forward to Goldie. Goldie Creek is it's a tributary to Scriber Creek, which is a branch of Swamp Creek. And Scriber Creek is in Linwood. Scriber Creek starts in sort of northwest Linwood, comes down to Scriber Lake. Then Scriber Creek flows out of Scriber Lake and then connects into Gold Creek and Briar. And then Scriber Creek continues on downstream into Swamp Creek. And new rail center that's going in Linwood. It's going in on what used to be a salmon spawning stream. Got paved over back when Linwood was approving commercial development back in the 70s there. Used to have a great coho salmon run at Scriber Creek. And Lion Creek, I skipped over Lion. Lion headwaters are in Montlake Terrace, and then flows down on the east side of I-5 underneath Ballinger Way next to Ballinger Automotive. And I think that's entering into Lake Forest Park at that juncture. Then it flows down east of Ballinger Way down to Lake Forest Park Town Center. And now I'm happy to say it flows in an open channel. One of those barriers to fish migration that we identified in a study many years ago that identified barriers to fish migration that DOT owned. So they fixed that one. So the creek then goes underneath the Bothell Highway down into Lake Washington. And I read a report recently, there was a couple of coho salmon coming up there. We have done some additional restoration work in that watershed, but there's a lot more that needs to be done, and particularly up in Montlake Terrace, which is the headwaters. And unfortunately, our headwater creeks just don't get the love that they should be getting from our regulations and policies. Because a lot of these headwaters actually don't have a channel with water flowing through it, so they're not identified as a stream system, and they consequently get, from a development perspective, get treated pretty badly. Pigeon Creek. So there's Pigeon Creek 1 and Pigeon Creek 2. Go to the Puget Sound Coastal Streamkeepers map from our website, which is streamkeeper.org. Go to the services section, scroll down to Puget Sound Coastal Streamkeepers. Pigeon Creek 1 flows through headwaters up near Rodland Toyota and that neighborhood along Evergreen Way. And I've been involved in that creek since 1980 something rather. And good news about that creek, we did a fish survey. The Toledo tribes can contract with us to do fish surveys in several of these creeks between Edmonds and Everett. And Pigeon Creek was one of them. We found coho salmon, resident Seaman cutthroat trout, and we found non-natal Chinook salmon fry there. And the reason for the Toledo's contracting with us, they were putting together a study to determine whether or not non-natal, meaning salmon, Chinook salmon that were hatched out somewhere else, would go along the near shore and then decide, hey, maybe I'm going to go back into fresh water for a little while. And we found non-natal Chinook salmon taking advantage of Pigeon Creek #1 habitat upstream of the railroad tracks. Our fish survey was from the near shore 300 meters upstream on these creeks. And so I don't know that Everett was real pleased when we let them know that, hey, you got an endangered species that's taking advantage of Pigeon Creek. Back in 1995, we got the Jackson Elementary School to adopt Pigeon Creek, and they're back in the day, we were actually providing grants to schools for salmon in the classroom aquariums, get kids involved in hatching out salmon eggs and then releasing them in local creeks. But we actually came to the conclusion that it's really better to teach kids to what a watershed is, where a riparian zone is, what the salmon habitat requirements are, and get them to think about taking actions to protect and enhance that salmon habitat rather than throwing a bunch of eggs in there and saying, oh, we've solved the problem. But in the case of Pigeon Creek, that salmon run had been lost entirely. And that's because of a lot of that development along Evergreen Way. It was done without any stormwater controls. And the Jackson Elementary School kids and their faculty, led by Lori Baker and Vicki Hill back then. My memory bank's still working here. And then they followed our suggestions of, hey, let's make contact with as many people as we can who live, work, and recreate in the watershed and get them to do some things to help protect the creek. And so they got people to start marking storm drains with dump no waste drains of stream. They got people to start planting trees instead of replacing their lawns with trees that were next to the creek and stuff like that. And then they marched off to City Hall, and in advance they let City Hall know that they were going to be visiting them and that they were going to be accompanied by radio, TV, and newspaper people. So they went to City Hall and said, would you help us protect the salmon run and restore that salmon run in Pigeon Creek? And in front of this audience of cameras and microphones, City Council said, yes, we'll do that. And they declared that particular day Salmon Day in Everett. And they agreed to put in a stormwater control facility to corral some of that stormwater runoff from Evergreen Way. And to their credit, they spent $500,000 doing so. And that reduced a lot of the peak flows of water going downstream and some of the erosion and sedimentation that essentially killed off the salmon run. And then simultaneously, the kids were planting salmon from this classroom aquarium in the creek. In 1997, ABC TV's Home Show, which used to be a syndicated TV program, called me and asked if we had any things going on where kids would be out doing something in the creek. We said, yes, we got Jackson Elementary School and they're monitoring the health of the creek, and told them different things they were looking at. So they came out to do a TV shoot, and the kids were down there, and the camera crew was setting up their cameras, trying to focus in on the creek, and the first salmon in over 20 years came back. It was like one of those, wow, look at that. So that made some pretty big news and led to articles in Reader's Digest, New York Times, and a whole bunch of other things. So that salmon run is improved from nothing to where there's silver salmon there, a resident sea-run cutthroat trout, and now non-natal Chinook salmon, which were spawned in the Snohomish River Basin, came downstream and said, this looks like a place I can go back up into fresh water for a little bit. So that we're finding that some of these little creeks that don't have spawning habitat suitable for king salmon are actually rearing habitat for juvenile salmon that are just coming out of the river system and want to take a little more time back in fresh water. So we're finding they're spending up to a couple months back in these little creeks, then they go back out to the sound. Do they return back to the the streams like Pigeon Creek? No, they go back to where they're hatched out. It's pretty interesting. Toledo Tribes has a study on creeks between Edmonds and Everett, and then between Camino Island and the Stanwood area. So it's or Whidbey Island and Camino Island. So they looked at the little creeks are flowing in. And I don't know, Whidbey Island, the folks in Island County were all thrilled with learning a lot of their little creeks had habitat for Chinook salmon either. Now they do. Halls Creek. Halls Creek, the watershed on the west side of the creek is in Linwood, on the east side is in Mont Lake Terrace, goes down to Halls Lake. Halls Creek flows out of the lake into Lake Ballinger. And then underneath I-5, Mackler Creek flows out of Lake Ballinger, which goes down past Ballinger Way, and it also flows down past Lake Forest Park Town Center, underneath the Bothell Highway into Lake Washington. Historically, king salmon, silver salmon, sockeye salmon, steelhead, and resident cutthroat trout. There's a few coho that still get back into that creek, and there are resident cutthroat trout. They're a little tougher than the salmon from dealing with human impacts on the creek, but a lot of work needs to be done on that stream as well. And so that's kind of a rundown. I think I got everybody here. Just a quick snapshot of your local creeks. The bottom line here is we need to beef up the policies and regulations, land use policies and regulations when it comes to protecting our habitat. The Snohomish County Planning Department used to be, actually it's Planning and Development Services. It used to be the Planning Department. And some people sarcastically say it's actually the Development Services Department. I know we're being taped here, but I think one of the things that really needs to be done in all the jurisdictions that share these watersheds is for them to actually enforce the rules that they have on the books. And the city and county governments don't enforce the rules very well, and that's evident in a number of places where things go on. And example, here at McCullum Park, community transit building the Orange Line bus station, and I come here every day and see what's going on, and they had taken out an area that had evolved into a wetland, had been there for like 20 some years, longer than that, and took it out and then put no erosion and sediment controls around it. And it's one of these summers, like 2 summers ago, when North Creek headwaters went dry from May until mid-October. Well, on October 21st, 2 years ago, a few days before that, there's predictions of heavy rainfalls starting on October 21st. According to the NPDES permit that the county holds, and all the cities hold, they have these NPDES permits, non-point discharge, I forget what the total acronym stands for. There's a section in there, I think it's section 9, says if you have areas of exposed soil and during the winter months, and according to the NPDES rules, October is the beginning of winter, within 2 days prior to any predicted rainstorm events, all bare soils need to be covered, and or there has to be erosion sediment controls placed around those soils to prevent sediment from flowing off. So on about the 19th, I went over and saw one of the engineers that was working on this project and said, you know, we got some rain coming and you got all this bare earth out here. I think you might want to look at covering that up. And of course, they didn't want to hear anything from me. And I'll be back. So came back, I think the 21st was a Sunday. I wasn't here, but I came back on following that. And sure enough, there was all kinds of sediment going into this former wetland area underneath the road, downstream into a little creek called Sitka Creek, which flows on the onto property now owned by the Adoptive Stream Foundation to the east of the Northwest Stream Center. And again, no response to my suggestions that they get erosion sediment controls in place. So I called the Planning and Development Services Department and asked to connect with the county inspector assigned to this project. It turns out it took me over an hour to find the right person who was not real thrilled that I was calling about this. And particularly I said, when's the last time you actually came down and inspected this site? And I got apparently he hadn't. But in between, because I was a little frustrated trying to find out who the county inspector was, I called the Washington State Department of Ecology and got a hold of the NPDES coordinator for Department of Ecology, sent him a bunch of pictures of what was happening there, came out, and that led to a whole flurry of activity. And the county inspectors say, oh, I guess we need to do this and that. So they kind of got at it. And then subsequently, I think there was an article in the Everett Herald a couple months back where Community Transit got fined 10 grand. And then the contractor who was working for them got fined 10 grand as well for not complying with the NPDES permit. But a lot of this has to do with the general public also not knowing what the rules are or who the rulers are. You know, what do you do when you see a bulldozer in a creek this time of year? I don't know what you guys would do, but what I do is I call 911 and ask for a Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife patrol officer through the State Patrol's dispatch system. You can share that with your members. Or call the Washington State Department of Ecology, ask to speak to somebody who's in charge of their pollution problems. And Ecology now has a new office in Shoreline, so they're pretty convenient to Snohomish County. And then when you call in to Ecology, they have an environmental reporting tracking system referred to as ERTS. I think the county inspectors call it ERCS, but ERTS, good thing about ERTS is that Ecology then calls different agencies that theoretically should be responsible for a particular area. So they really get the inspectors who should be out all inspecting in advance actually getting out there. But it really takes a well-informed citizen group, or just the community being aware of what little simple things they can do to help make things better. So, and that's part of what we do here at the Stream Centers. We try to teach people how to become stewards of their watersheds. So,
you are such an encyclopedia of our watersheds and the health of I mean, who else could spout off creek by creek going from an assembly like this and tell us the state or the status of that particular watershed? I mean, to me, it's phenomenal just to listen to you. And what listening to this last part, what you're saying is exactly what the Department of Ecology turns back to us and says, it takes the citizen, an informed citizen, to make a difference, because we don't see it all. We don't have a chance to be out there to get our eyes on everything that's happening in our environment. And he says we really, really depend on citizen reports to be able to make a difference. And that's exactly what I hear you saying too. And Tom, I can't even begin to tell you how grateful, and I'm sure everyone here feels the same, how grateful we are for the way that you have pioneered environmental education within our community. It is with great thanksgiving that we have had you here today.